Hello everybody, welcome back to your book club. Today for your monthly updated book club, kind of monthly updated, we are going to be talking about the critical roles, the Kanze and other Zemnian tales. I know I butchered that. Here she is. Ooh. Ooh. So this is the hardcover version, as you can see, with the dust jacket on, and when you take the dust jacket off, it looks basically the same, although it's like ever so slightly not 100% on. Fun fact, not the greatest fan of a dust jacket because it just always slides and feels weird, but I will keep it on for this book. So the blurb is actually different from this blurb, so interesting, but the fronts otherwise are pretty much the same. Sorry, I'm just having a look. Yeah, they look the exact same. So for now, I'm just going to take that off. But this is the book. It's quite a thin book. There are 3 stories in this book. So I will kind of tell you what they're called, and then I'll give you my opinion. So this is all in kind of German. It's the fantasy version of German, which is Zemnian, which is the Caspian, which is the front. Darwaza and Himmelschlau? Can you tell I don't know German? Basically, it's 3 stories. One is, I think it's like the Cat Prince. Yeah, the Cat Prince is the first one, which is what the book is called, hence why the Cat Prince is on the front. And then the second one, which I love, I think the most out of all 3. I think the Cat Prince is cute, but I think my absolute favorite is, if I can get to it, The Forest Witch, which is the same one because the art, stunning. Shout out to the artist who I have, what's the name of the artist? Charles Brovsky, who is a Chesnian. Beautiful art, need to check them out. But the third kind of story, which I think is really cute, but also is really sad, which is The Castle in the Sky. So you can kind of see, without giving too much away, the stories. So I'm going to basically talk about, like, is it worth the price, you know, all those things, etc, etc. Now the price, I don't actually know the price of this particular book because I got given it as a birthday gift, but I know that Critical Role books hardcovers tend to be quite on the more dearer side, more like your 40, 50 Australian dollars. I think American it's like 20, yeah, American it's $22.99, Canadian $31.99, so for us it'd be about 40-ish dollars. Personally, as much as I think this story is beautiful, I don't know if it's exactly worth $40. I think if it was the American like 22, I'd be more inclined, but the only reason why I am kind of more neutral is because this is something that I want to keep for my future children, and I want to read it to them as bedtime stories. Sorry, I'm just noticing when you look up on it, I don't know if you can see, but the Critical Role logo is actually like the boss. Yeah, where it's like raised up. Real smart. The only thing I don't like about the cover of this book, as somebody who has made their own books and has published books, is on the side here where they've got the Critical Role logo. Clearly they hadn't thought about the design aspect of this section here, because on the side when looking at it, it looks great, but when you look at it face on, the Critical Role logo kind of blends in with the background. So I kind of wish either they left a blank spot or kind of worked with it, because it kind of looks a little messy otherwise. But I mean, otherwise it looks great. I think the writing is quite beautiful. The font size, surprisingly enough, is like big enough for most people, I think, to be able to read, as you can see there. Because I'm so used to like reading a lot of books where this font is either really hard to read or kind of more on the smaller side, and this feels big enough where you can actually read it, but also like the background isn't impeding too much. I'd be curious for colorblind people if they have any issues with reading the book, but because something like this page You can see here a little bit can be a little difficult, but overall it's quite nice. And I love this. It's very much, oh, I always get the name wrong. Like your Hansel and Gretel, it kind of feels like an origin story of like the Hans brothers, sorry, the Grimm brothers. I would say Hans, like the Grimm brothers stories. Very much gives off that energy and that vibe of kind of how everything's inspired. But I think definitely I love the art the most for the witch, the forest witch, because that, incredible. I love that. I think my favorite story, however, is gotta be the sky, the castle in the sky. Yeah, the castle in the sky. It takes up quite a chunk of the book, but it's just such a beautiful story, and I really love, like, as you can see here, like your knights, anything to do with like kings, your knight in shining armors will always be a story for me. That's why my love for like King Arthur and all medieval times definitely sings out in this book. I would recommend this book, especially if you have young children or if you just miss reading a fairy tale. I probably wouldn't recommend this for people who are looking for lore. There's not a lot of lore when it comes to the Critical Role universe. The only lore I potentially picked up on is in the last story. It talks about how the little bird was given a piece of this golden tree, the sun tree, and brought it down to Earth. So it's interesting that they use the word Earth in this instead of Exandria or like Terra, because I'm pretty sure they call the planet Terra sometimes, but it's Exandria is the continent. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But kind of gives a different narrative on how the sun tree came about compared to the other book, which will be up in the iCard, talking about kind of how the sun tree actually came to be. So I feel like this is more of like the folk's tale, where the other one's more of a accurate telling. So I think that's kind of interesting, showing how two different cultures believe the sun tree came to be. And who knows, maybe there's a different sun tree that either we are not aware of or ceases to exist anymore. So that might be interesting, because originally when I was reading this tree, I was like, oh, is it the tree that Keyleth resides in? Is it the sun tree? And then as soon as there's a scene where the queen is literally imbuing the tree with, looks like the sun, and it talks about being so high up, like this image here, I'm like, oh, it's the sun tree. 100% it's the sun tree. So, and it kind of calls it the sun tree to an extent. Or it says like, you know, the golden tree who reaches the sun. So I'm like, definitely supposed to be the sun tree. But otherwise, the first two, from my perceived knowledge, and maybe I didn't pick it up, didn't really give any lore or referencing, which I don't think it needs to. Although I am curious more about the forest witch, kind of because of the ending of what she takes. She takes from the children, she takes a part of the mind, she takes an eye, and she takes the heart. Like this image, if you know from Campaign 3, gives off very much like Nanamori vibes to me. So I was like, I wonder if this is Nanamori's origins and how Fern kind of came, well, not how Fern came to be, but like maybe how some other creatures came to be. I don't know, I'm very intrigued, but this was such a fun read. I read this probably within an hour, not even. It took me about 15 minutes in the car to read, and then I finished it off. So it took me like 20 minutes to read. It's a small book. It's only got, let me have a look. It's got 111 pages, technically. Yeah, so it has 111 pages because the last page is that one. So it is definitely like a really small book. Kind of wish there was more pages, like 2 more stories. I feel like would have made it a decent chunk of a book. But otherwise, like overall size of the book, my hand for comparison, like it's a good hold. Like it's easy to hold, it's not heavy. I like that it has the string, so when you kind of are wanting the favorite story, you can just lock it in place. Because a lot of books don't do the string and it's really frustrating. So, and I like that obviously the blue matches the book. So I definitely quite like, you can obviously tell always with Critical Role, their attention to detail is insane. Everything they do is so cared for and appreciated, and you can just see how much love they poured into every single element, and I love that so much for them. So overall, I give this book a 4 out of 5 reads. It is such a fun read to do. It's nice and relaxing, it's comfortable. I only wouldn't recommend it if you're somebody who's looking for lore or inner details into the Critical Role world, but if you like reading or stories of any type, then this is the book for you. Highly recommend, super fun read. And if you don't feel like buying it, and maybe your friend has it, just borrow theirs. Never hurts to share a book, share some love. But yeah, that's all I have for this book here. Thank you all so much for listening. Let me know if you've gotten this book and you read it, what's your opinion, or let me know what other books I should be looking into next. Until then, I will see you for book week next time. Love you guys. Bye.